Hello, and thank you for downloading this podcast.
And remember, guys, you can download this podcast on Podbean and iTunes. Check us out on YouTube and follow us at Layman Experts on Twitter.
Hello, and welcome to the Layman Experts, who are joined by me, Prime Tagizada, and as always, without a shadow of a doubt, he's always here, can't get rid of him, Alistair Yeoman.
Hello, Pam. How are you doing? Thanks for introducing as usual. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yes. It's a Monday evening. It's like off-peak, isn't it?
It's off
Off-peak hours.
I like how you asked me the question, how you doing, then as I was answering, you kept through.
Yeah.
How you doing? Pam, no, I'm speaking polite.
Do you feel like when we say how we're doing at the start of the podcast, it's a bit redundant how you're doing because we've already been hanging around for an hour normally before we even start?
No, but the audience needs to get the camaraderie, you know?
Okay. Guys, if you're listening, you've got opinions on whether we should say how you're doing at the start of the podcast or not, please let us know.
Yeah, we're on Twitter, at Layman Experts.
Should we cut it out? Should we just go straight into the topic, or should we keep saying how you're doing?
I think people like a bit of a chit-chat, like 2 minutes max.
Okay.
He thinks otherwise. So
we're approaching 2 minutes now, aren't we?
1 minute 15 seconds.
Hope we are.
Okay.
Right.
No, so Alistair, can you please do the normal way you introduce the episode?
Sure, Pine. It would be an absolute privilege and a pleasure. So, today's question is going to be, how is AI going to change our working lives? Why we picked this question, Pine?
So, I was really keen on doing this particular episode and this topic, as it is a hot topic. Always.
Right. What do you mean by hot topic? Do you mean that you're reading loads of articles that are just scaring you?
I also listened to different podcasts. So, one podcast I listened to is called Waking Up with Sam Harris.
Right.
And he had, on one of his episodes, a 2020 Democratic candidate called Andrew Yang. He's a Silicon Valley guy. Okay. And he's seen what AI is going to do in the future. And he's going to run in 2020.
What do you mean he's seen?
Because he's a very techie guy.
Okay, I get you.
He's Silicon Valley man.
He gets it. And
he gets it.
Yeah, okay.
And he's he's actually written a bestseller book called The War on Normal People. He's like a rich guy, but he's been going to Midwest of America and he's understanding that these people are going to suffer when AI really kicks in. And he's going to run the 2020 election based on universal basic income.
Yeah, so he's running for election and he wants to implement this AI world that he believes can exist, and at the same time he knows people will suffer as a result of it.
No, so he's not going to run using AI. He knows that what AI is going to do. Mm. So he wants to have a law in place, like a sort of social system called universal basic income, where everybody in the country gets, let's say, $1,000 a month, regardless of who they are.
Yeah.
So that everybody has some sort of salary.
Your basic salary. Yeah, so I've heard that concept before. So before we divulge into that sort of stuff, we'll just set the scene. So obviously,
I've never set the scene.
Everyone has heard of AI these days.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
Everyone. Well, actually, that's a common misconception. AI can mean a few things. It can be assisted intelligence. It can be automated intelligence. It can be augmented intelligence. It can be autonomous intelligence. So it can be a few things. That's when you say AI, it can mean many things. It can have many different impacts. A robot could be helping you out as opposed to thinking for you. But anyway, what we're going to say is AI. Why is it important? Well, PwC predict that 326 million jobs will be impacted by AI by 2030. There's also estimates that global GDP will grow quite significantly as a result of AI and as a result of processes and less human touch sort of stuff. Processes getting more efficient. Lower human touch points. And it should be a 14% growth by 2030. In global GDP due to AI, which is significant, 14%.
That's pretty high.
That's pretty high. There's certain countries in line to benefit from AI. So North America and China are seen to be the biggest. Seem to be in line to have the biggest economic gains from AI. Why is that? That's because North America, at this current moment, is a country with who are most perfectly well placed to adapt the technology.
By North America, in the US, predominantly.
Yeah, the US. So basically, AI is everywhere in the US, and therefore, when it starts to creep into everyday life, they'll be the first to implement.
You see already the driverless Ubers. They're testing the SF already. So
Second country to have the biggest effect. So North America is the first. Second is China. The reason why China are so well placed to have big economic gains from AI is because of the marginal impact potential on their productivity. So obviously, they're hugely manufacturing based at the moment. When you start to automate those processes and you need less people within a factory, then it makes things more efficient. So so we've set the scene. That those are PwC stats. So let's believe they are going to be true. I'm sure they would have done some good research there. So on that pretense, if AI is going to be such a massive global part of society in 2030 time, what are your concerns or worries? Will be the question we'll visit in a minute. But in this moment in time, can you just tell me what were your thoughts prior to researching this topic?
Yeah, so my thoughts were, they've always been quite suspicious, because...
Your thoughts?
My thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I find it difficult to imagine a situation where these companies will, once they make people redundant, there's a way to making sure these people who have been made redundant to live just as good a life. And I think of an example, the mining days in the 80s.
Yeah.
We all know the Thatcher or whatever.
Yeah.
Those people, once the mining jobs were taken away from them, they had nothing to back them. They had nothing. They were literally had nothing.
Yeah.
They just had benefits, had no job, it was a state of depression, and we're still recovering from that even today.
You mean those mining towns still haven't recovered properly?
Yeah, they haven't recovered properly. Like if you go to the towns in the valleys, north of England, I mean, I'm not saying they're struggling, but they haven't fully recovered. Okay. So I'm thinking, how is this going to be any different to the experience that people had in the 80s?
Okay, so is that a question for me?
Yeah. Well,
should we go back and forth a little bit?
Okay,
so we'll do a little bit back and forth. I think that the reason why it's slightly different is because that mining, first of all, the areas in which mines were set up were areas where there was the resource there was something to be mined, right? So very, very geographically set in one area. I think that if we go from AI, a factory right now to a factory of AI, the location won't change. The amount of workers in the factory might change.
Say that again, sorry?
I said the location won't change. It won't be like all of a sudden those places where factories are suddenly going to pull from the ground and drop somewhere else. The people within the factory, the amount of people will probably change. We don't know though. We don't know. At this moment in time, I think there's a lot of assumption that AI means less people need to be working.
Well, interestingly, so you read a PwC study.
Yeah.
I read a McKinsey report.
Yeah.
That looked at what's going to happen by 2030.
Right.
So
conflicting.
Not too conflicting, but I think looking at slightly different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm reading some statistics to you now. They said that globally, up to 800 million people could be displaced, in terms of jobs, due to automation, and 375 million people will need to move industries completely. I think a lot of people are going to be affected by this.
Okay, so obviously a lot of people will be affected from this. I'm not denying that for one moment, but AI is a technology that's it's on par with when the light bulb was created. It's a big thing. It's groundbreaking. It will completely change the way we work. It will disrupt a lot of industries. It'll creep into every industry probably. It'll disrupt the way we get educated. It'll disrupt everything. So those figures don't surprise me at all. But what surprises me is that people will view AI, and this is digging down to the main reason for my view on AI, which I haven't really
you haven't said it yet. Yeah, you haven't said it yet. No one really cares.
I think that why is there so much fear around it when it's the whole world's gonna have to adapt to this anyway, right? Because essentially all AI is promising to do, from what I've read, you hear all the iRobot horror stories. From the research I've read, it sounds like a lot of the processes or a lot of ways AI is being used is in conjunction with humans to help support their own work. So an example is you would use an AI in healthcare was one of the biggest industries. It wasn't manufacturing was one of the biggest industries I read to get affected by it. Healthcare was. I think that was the main one from the PwC, and factory was right on the bottom. Healthcare, because you can have data points, small data points on a person that a GP or physician is never going to see a pattern in, Whereas a computer, if you feed those data points in, there's obviously going to be the question around what do you do with the patient data.
Yeah.
There's all those questions. That's a different podcast or whatever. But if you have all those little data points and you can use robots to join up the points, then you can somehow, lead to earlier diagnosis, or or make things more efficient, or in terms of take the strain off GPs or A&E practitioners or whatever it is, just by using robots and making things lower touch.
No, of course.
Why is
that's
that?
a great example of how it can be used to benefit society. But I think that's just one example. So, judging by the fact that's the example you gave, you're a lot more optimistic about AI.
I'm not. I think that
Quietly optimistic.
Well, no. I just think that I think that there's two sides to this, two ways of looking at this. Either AI is gonna come through and we have to get on with it because it is a technology that's gonna lead to a better quality of life, and I firmly believe that's the case. I don't think if you're right now, your job is moving one thing to the next place in the factory, and that's what your job is. Even if that's been your job for 10 years, there's no way you can convince me that you love that job. I just don't think that's physically possible for a human being to love doing a monotonous task.
Yeah.
So therefore, when AI comes in, it does all that for you, and it gives people more time to do parts of a job that actually a human really needs input in. And I think those are the parts of everyone's work that they value the most.
Yeah, I accept that. I mean, backing up the point you're actually saying. So the McKinsey report believes that 30% of predictable labour jobs, i.e., moving thing A to from A to B, will be gone by 2030. So of course, those people, they're not having a job that enriches their life particularly at all.
No.
But my question is, what are we going to do with these people?
Yeah,
they need something to do.
I think So I think in terms of AI, we know for a fact that those autonomous jobs will get
phased out.
Phased out. Probably quite quickly phased out as well. Like probably when one big company does it, all of a sudden everybody's doing it.
When I saw 30%, I actually thought it was quite low. I thought it'd be more than 30% of predictable labour.
But what I would say as well though is that, the miners. I think the problem with the mining industry, and I'm not massively knowledgeable about this. The problem was that Margaret Thatcher didn't find them another alternative, right? Mm-hmm. That was a political problem.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's politics come into play. But I think that at the same time, it would be madness to think that we'd still be, just so everyone keeps their job, we'd still be using coal and we hadn't moved on. It's not the way it's going to work. It's the same with when people were before the car was introduced and people were riding around the horse and cart. There would have been lots of people who would be making money from breeding the horses or taking the horses from the countryside to the city and making the iron hooves, whatever they're called, for the horse, all that stuff. There would have been loads of jobs in place, and everyone would have gone, oh bloody hell! But this car over here, this does a lot of the stuff for us. What's going to happen to us? And they would have all lost their jobs. But
I'd say big differences.
There's
running a car, creating the car, manufacturing the car, designing the car actually creates more jobs than it loses from removing the horse people.
But I think you're assuming that AI is going to be it's only going to make a very small change in our society. I think it's a very big change. I think it's going to be a real reshuffle of the pack. I think so. For example, you're saying it's only doing this certain thing. It's not creating more jobs. But at the same time, I've heard about AI for education, where they're saying these days that actually in the classroom, teachers are going to start to struggle and institutions are going to start to struggle because they can't keep up with how efficient the education process is online, where online websites, or whatever you want to call them, online institutions use AI to make the learning process more effective. So AI is creeping into all different areas.
And you kind of
I think the point is that it makes things more efficient. I think if there's people in the system who are making things more efficient, then everyone else is going to follow suit, and all of a sudden industries change. For example, we might not have university in 40 years because of AI. All these things change. I think it's very hard to pinpoint and say, well, if all these people over here in this segment of society lose their jobs, there's going to be nothing left for them, because I think that everything's going to change as a result of this.
But I feel like in a way you backed up my point though, because teachers are going to struggle when they won't need teachers because AI will do the job.
Yeah.
Everything is saying jobs are being removed.
But at the same time, this PwC study is saying that...
It's like a bit of a competition. My McKinsey Global Institute study
No,
against
to answer your question directly, you're assuming that everyone needs a job to get money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously that's logical. But I think that and I've read books about this where these economists think about these sort of wacky theories or whatever, but it doesn't kind of make sense. I think that as AI gets more and more effective, GDP grows. Why does GDP grow? Because productivity is increasing, and at the same time, consumerism is going to increase as well. Why? Because we're getting more and more fine tuned as to matching an individual with the product they want. So consumer spending will increase. So will productivity. That's a sign of a health. That's how economists, the Bank of England, that's how they measure how healthy an economy is. So if those are all fine, everything's great. So let's assume those things are doing well. Those things are doing well with less people having to work, or people having to work less hours in one day. So essentially what's happening is people having to work less hours, they're getting more money for it, and they're having better lifestyles as a result. That's the world I imagine to happen. I imagine that as a result of this, people are gonna have to do less of the shitty monotonous stuff they don't want to do. They have maybe work few hours a day, and get to have a lot more human creativity input into what they do.
No, that's one theory of looking at it. But there's actually a really interesting... I can't remember what the name of the author is who wrote it, but it's called the donut economic theory. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I have heard of this, yeah.
And as I understand it, the idea is the hole in the middle is GDP. And as that grows, it's going to eat away into the other things that are important. Environment, I don't know, social equality, whatever it might be, because you're putting too much emphasis on GDP. So I'll ask you the question. As GDP grows, are we sure everybody's going to see the benefit of the GDP growth, or is only a certain percentage of people going to see the benefit of the GDP growth?
Well, I mean, I think...
So GDP per head is important, all these things. Just GDP...
So when you say who's going to see the benefit of it, are you insinuating that those people who were working in the factory don't get new jobs, or are you saying that's your main worry here? They don't get new jobs.
That's an example. So the Uber, like the driverless Uber cars. Yeah. Imagine no more taxis in London. Yeah. That's like 1 million jobs, wherever it might be. Yeah. Gone. That's 1 million jobs, not in London, in the UK, just vanished. No more truck drivers because they're going to be driverless. God knows how many jobs that is, just gone.
So but it's the same. It's the same with the coal miners. If that wasn't managed correctly by the government, in some people's opinion, some people's opinion it was. Yeah. That's irrelevant to this conversation, whether it was right or wrong. But you still can't expect us to still be using coal just to keep people their jobs.
That's a point that we agree on.
It's madness to think that. It's madness to think that a guy should be stuck in a factory moving something from A to B, just so he's got a job, because a robot can do the same thing.
No, that's
I don't know.
That's a point that maybe we agree on. It's something that should be changed. But my question to you is, how are we going to ensure that people's lives are not going to be too damaged by AI?
I think that's. I mean, it's a tough question, because at the same time you're assuming that they will be. You're assuming there's not going to be any jobs for them, and at the same time, if you look at all the GDP, I know you said about the donut. If you look at the GDP growth figures, those figures are going to be based on underlying industries which they expect to see growth within those industries. If those industries are seeing growth, typically that means that people within those industries to get paid better, you're going to start employing more people within that industry to get greater growth. It's just
you're making that assumption as well.
We're having to make assumptions till we don't know what's going to happen. But I think that I just can't see a way that, and also as well, you're assuming that all of a sudden the factory's run by robots. You don't need engineers. You don't need low skill engineers. Like they're saying these days as well that in schools they need to start teaching young kids about AI, because 20 years time everyone will need to know about it a bit, because you're probably going to have a robot on your computer doing a lot of stuff for you that you need to adjust or tweak or whatever to do tasks for you.
Of course, I'm not saying the jobs will completely disappear, but they'll be minimised. That's the point I'm trying to... So my question is, again, how will we ensure... How can we say to Payam, I don't think people are going to be in the same situation as the miners were, because
You can't. It's an impossible question to answer right now at this point, this moment in time, because we don't know. We don't know where our AI is going to lead. We don't know what the government reaction to it will be. All we know is the technology exists, and companies are implementing it at this moment in time, and they're seeing benefits from doing so in terms of cost cutting, which is a very feared world, especially in like a media society where cost cutting reminds people like the financial crisis and stuff. They're seeing cost cutting, they're seeing automated processes, which means less human interaction, and that again in the newspapers is the first assumption is, does that mean there's going to be less jobs? And I think it's a very, very hard question to answer, and I think that I can't come out and say to you it's going to be fine, that there's going to be no problem, but people on the other side can't say there's definitely going to be a problem. I think that the one logic in my head, the reason I would say it's unlikely it's going to be a problem, is it's going to affect so many people. Do you think Britain, for example, let's say, I don't know what the percentage of people who work in factory in Britain would be, that's going to be hundreds of thousands. Do you think Britain is just going to let hundreds of thousands of people just go homeless?
Not go homeless, but give them a very... Same as what they did in the miners. They give them some benefits just to make sure they have food on the table, but really they were struggling.
I don't know, it's kind of not really about AI though, this is more social.
This is more social, but the question was, how is it affecting our working lives?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So one question I have for you is, do you believe, so one way of dealing with this problem, I feel, is something that's been brought up before. It's not necessarily universal basic income, it's a national education service. So here, National Health Service, we have the right almost to see a doctor no matter how old we are, what stage in our lives we are. A National Education Service is a constant system of education where, let's say I'm a factory worker and my job is no longer here. It's the state will ensure that I've always got the skills to keep up with the industries and the shift in
I think that I mean there's always talking about, like I said before, AI in sort of primary education. That should be, I think, implemented, but also as well, I've heard a few people talk about education AI, and they've said at the moment, like, there's a system where go to school for however many years it is, go to college or university, you get a degree for 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, come out, get a job, do that job for a few years, get a better one, and it's just like is there any need for that university, the 3 years? Are you better at doing what you do because you went to university? No. No, exactly. And I'm thinking it's the same for me. I think some people are, some people aren't. Different. I'm not saying there's nothing better. They're different. Okay, and I think that a lot of people would struggle to say that the £30,000 they paid was definitely worth it. Well, they're saying these days that AI can be peer-to-peer education. AI can be a person learning something from a computer screen, and then the people who are hiring don't need to go, oh, well, this guy's got a first from Oxford, this guy's got no degree whatsoever, because they're also using AI to analyse data and to assess you to see who's best for the job. So there's AI can be used across the board, right? So I think that, even AI for if you're an employer or recruiter using AI, it's just make things easier I should say. It makes things easier, and it also makes things more accurate. I just don't see why the whole world isn't going to suddenly flip over and all of a sudden everyone is using AI for everything, and as a result the whole global economy in terms of what jobs are available and what functions we need doing doesn't flip over as well. That's why I see it going. I could easily see the industries we work in today being completely redundant in 20 years.
So what you're saying is, how to explain, I think there's a potential for that. I just fear that the practicality is the people who are implementing AI, they want to.
So when you say the people implementing, your worry is the people who are a bit detached from reality, from the everyday man.
Yes. I worry that they're not going to allow us to see the true benefits. The everyday person allow us to see the true benefits of AI. So there's actually one guy called Aaron Bastani. He's a journalist he's I think head journalist for Novara Media.
What do they do?
It's just a media channel.
Fine,
And they believe that, he's a bit of a lefty to be honest,
right.
they believe that communism is now truly possible with AI. Kind of agrees with you actually, in a weird way.
Peer to peer.
Peer to peer. So he says like, before, communism could never truly exist because we didn't have enough material for people. We couldn't produce enough. Everybody had to work, and it was so much inequality as a consequence. But now with AI, everybody can afford to have an abundance. Everybody can go to a car that's parked on the street, a kind of a taxi system, take me to school, and be really cheap because you have an abundance of everything. Yeah. Maybe also with reusable rockets you were talking about before.
Yeah.
And in the future, that's something we can aim for. Like, we shouldn't be scared of AI. We should make sure that AI works for everybody.
Okay. And
that's how he views it. Do you see that?
I see what you're saying.
He actually calls that luxury communism, and he's writing a book which he's not finished.
I see what you're saying. I think the problem you're citing there is a problem that let's say so Uber, right? Uber obviously have that well-known vision of wanting to
driverless cars,
have no cars on the road, and it's just Ubers, and no one owns their own car. You just hail an Uber down every morning, and they're all driverless.
Yeah.
If that were to exist, and obviously that's hugely driven by AI, just so you guys know, they want to use AI technology to drive the cars to make sure there's no crashes on the road, to make sure this robot stops at point A where you told it to stop, all this stuff. Let's say if that were implemented, and it was implemented by an institution who we can trust, which is hard to find.
Very hard to find.
But an institution we can trust, and the institution says we would only take some money for repairs in the service. There's going to be and it's an AI robot doing this, so it's really accurate or whatever. That, between the Uber CEO still being the Uber CEO and having the monopoly market of the whole world of global cars, difference between those two things is the exact same problem we have now in society constantly. The only difference is that in that hypothetical scenario we just dreamt up, the Uber CEO has monopoly of the whole global market rather than whatever market share he has now. So it's kind of the same problem we have now, and there's monopoly rules will still come to play. I know what you mean. It can be used for bad and good, and I think let's face it. I think it's unlikely that AI is going to be used in a communist way, which makes everything free for anybody. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think it's more likely it's to go the other way, and it'll just make the companies of these rich people more efficient. It allows them to bring down costs, maybe if they decide to pass on to the end consumer. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, if they're not giving any money to anyone to spend, or they're not giving people incomes or jobs, then they can't pump money back into the economy. They can't give profit back to those businesses. So it's going to have to be a balance somewhere.
So I guess my question is, the arching question we asked at the start of the episode, how is AI going to change our working lives? Is it going to change it for the better? So a 50-year-old man may be done in a factory. Is his life going to be improved? Is working life going to be improved?
It's hard. It's really hard because obviously it's time frames, right? So I think will his life be improved? It's hard because, especially because of the age as well, right? I don't know whether if someone's 70. Relative, if you say someone's 20, they've got a lot of time to adapt, to
relearn.
First of all, I think if he's 50 years old, I think he'll have his guaranteed pension, whatever he's got, and I think he'll probably just work towards that. Was he going to retire in a factory for years anyway? Well, this age is a problem?
Yeah, because 50 years, he's going to be retired at 65.
Okay, so it's 15 years. I would imagine that, slightly. I don't know. I don't want to. The logical thing is that, on the very logical level, is that there's going to be some redundancies in the factory.
Yeah. Well, we know this for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be some redundancy in the factory. I think some people within that factory will then get trained up how to use the robots, the AI robots, and how to just do simple tasks them every day. The people who decide they want to learn that, or the company decides that the people they want to keep will learn that. The other people will leave. I don't know. I think there will be some redundancies, but I think that it's just one of those things. It's like anything, right? It's like any disruptive technology leads to changes, and I think that they just need to, unfortunately, a factory worker is categorised as a lowly skilled worker in our global economy.
Yeah.
Right? A lowly skilled worker doesn't have a specialised skill set
True.
relative to other people.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So it means that sometimes, you know, people in these industries unfortunately need to change industries and change jobs when these disruptions occur.
I guess my question then,
yeah.
do you think it's the state's responsibility, kind of National Education Service that I mentioned, the state's responsibility to make sure these people will have the skills to move on in their careers, no matter how old they are?
Is it the state's responsibility? As in, it's the state's responsibility to oversee companies changing in the industries and providing resource for these people to
train. I mean, it could be either way. It could be state-run or state-regulating companies who are making people redundant to train them to have different skills.
Yeah, I think state regulating companies would. I mean, just AI education or education for. Yeah, I think 100%. They should have a program in place for those people. 100%. Yeah.
I agree, but I just think that.
You?
Well, actually, I believe in a national education service, something like a national health service. To be honest,
But I think that what I'm reading, I think that AI is gonna.
They could do
it's
that.
It's not gonna need this though. It's not even gonna be nationalised. It's just gonna be like Bitcoin. No IP. Just literally just floating there. Just you can just get it on the internet.
But someone's got to pay for it. Yeah, how can I just log on for free and take advantage of the learning?
Wait, that sounds mental, right? It sounds like a foreign concept. But if you've got education systems that are offering that free service competing with these other ones, and yeah, it will be free.
How are they making money? They need to do something for revenue.
Same old story, mate. Consult last episode. AdRev.
AdRev, is it?
It's the same. It is literally a changing world, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I think we both had some points that slightly contradicted another point. So I had Aaron Bastani, the Navarro Media, who's very optimistic, but that contradicts my initial point.
Yeah.
You seem very optimistic, but then you can't be too certain that the factory worker, the taxi driver who's 50, 60 years old, is going to have a good change in his career.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about AI. I think it's just so unanswered at the moment. We don't fully know what it's going to look like.
But I think that one of the things that is that, have you noticed a lot of the articles you read where they say AI and they don't even remember at the start I said there's 4 different types of AI. They don't even define whether it's the autonomous intelligence with like the iRobot that comes from the ground and starts telling you what to do because it knows more information than you, or whether it's just something that's going to help you out. They don't even define that. So how
I think generally artificial intelligence is what is generally known as.
Right, artificial intelligence though, but if they were focusing, but it is artificial intelligence, but there's underlying types of it. There's degrees of it, right?
Yeah.
So automated is just like they simple robot, like almost like a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And autonomous is like algorithms that become more intelligent with more information and time they develop themselves.
Yeah. So
those are all different types, and there's autonomous, augmented, whatever, it doesn't matter. But have you not noticed those articles, despite the lack of clarity they provide in the articles, they use like nice anecdotes and stuff. They have very, very clear, lucid views about where this will end up. And I almost find it hard to believe they can be so sure, even though they paint a very sure picture a lot of the time. So that's what makes me feel like the conclusion we've come to now, which is basically nothing, is a reasonable and sensible one. But the conclusions a lot of these articles make are there to excite you or be a good read, but I don't think they're really like being genuinely 100% honest.
I mean, you read different articles and they're very sure, right? They're very sure of themselves, but they're all contradicting themselves.
Yeah.
Some are worrying. Again, this guy who's like quite anti-capitalist in many ways, he believes like it's a great thing. Aaron Bastani thinks like an amazing thing. It's going to give us all a life of luxury.
But it's like his spin on the technology, right?
This guy Andrew Yang is a Silicon Valley man. Yeah. He thinks we really need universal basic income to protect people.
Yeah.
So everybody's got.
Agree with that.
Everyone's got their own different spin on it, and they're all very smart in their own way. So I think it's gonna be difficult for the normal person, the layman person, to work out.
I guess maybe it's that the AI technology is so all encompassing that there's so many ways you could use it, and we're only gonna have to wait and see before we see how businesses are using it.
Exactly.
Implementing it.
We'll do another episode in 5 years' time on AI to see how it goes.
Well, we wouldn't be doing it. There's 2 robots doing it.
Oh, Pion bots and Alistair bots. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you have any questions, tweet us. Any thoughts, tweet us. And thank you for listening.